Today, on Guess What I Found Out, we are doing something a little different. Because instead of one deep dive, we are covering 7 completely unrelated discoveries that all happened recently, spanning ice ages, flying reptiles, dinosaurs, outer space, and one extremely affectionate pair of orcas. This episode has the focus of someone doom-scrolling at 2 a.m., but with actual sourcing behind every claim. Quick business first. Last video, we joined the supersize club at the bottom of the ocean. Giant squid, ancient sharks, isopods that fast for half a decade. So if you have not seen that one yet, Curious George, go meet the deep-sea giants before we head back up to dry land, and eventually all the way out to outer space today. First up, the world's first meal prep influencers, otherwise known as Neanderthals. At a site called Neumark Nord in Germany, archaeologists found that Neanderthals set up an actual dedicated fat processing operation about 125,000 years ago, smashing the bones of at least 172 animals, mostly horses, deer, and wild ancestors of cattle, into tiny fragments, then boiling those fragments in water so the grease would rise to the surface and could be skimmed off. This was not casual snacking. This was organized, planned, and strategic, according to the researchers, who point out this happened roughly 100,000 years before our own species is known to have done anything similar, which is a genuinely humbling timeline to sit with. It also required them to haul carcasses from other hunting grounds, specifically to this one processing site, essentially prehistoric supply chain logistics. Turns out eating only lean meat can actually poison you over time through something called rabbit starvation, a real and potentially fatal condition. So Neanderthals were essentially the original nutrition influencers, just with more rocks and fewer ring lights. Next, the founding flyer, a newly identified pterosaur from Arizona named Eotephradactylus mcintireae, which translates to ash-winged dawn goddess, named in honor of Suzanne McIntyre, the museum volunteer who spent 18 years preparing fossils before spotting this one herself. At 209 million years old, this is officially the oldest pterosaur ever found in North America, roughly the size of a seagull. And yes, ash-winged dawn goddess is an incredible name for an animal that spent its days hunting armored fish with a mouthful of tiny teeth. It was discovered sharing its neighborhood with a bizarre mashup of animals, some that would go on to dominate the planet, like early turtles and frogs, and some far older lineages that would not survive the mass extinction event waiting just a few million years down the road. Do not forget to like this video, unless you want karma to place you in the same neighborhood as something that goes extinct in a few million years, which statistically is everyone. But still, no pressure, just cosmic bookkeeping. Here is where it gets stranger, because pterosaurs just got a plot twist. Scientists studying a Chinese species called Sinopterus atavismus found something remarkable preserved in its stomach. Over 300 microscopic plant fragments called phytoliths, along with little grinding stones called gastroliths that would have helped break down tough plant matter. This is the first direct evidence that any pterosaur was eating plants instead of just fish or insects, and it finally backs up decades of scientists squinting at parrot-shaped pterosaur beaks in Sinopterus's close relatives and going, "That looks like it was built for fruit, not flesh." Turns out they were right, and an entire toothless beaked family of pterosaurs may have been living far more peacefully than their fearsome reputation suggests. Speaking of decades of scientists squinting at things, next up, the world's most patient identity crisis. A small Jurassic reptile fossil sat labelled as the wrong species for nearly a century, because half of it was in a museum in Frankfurt, and the other half ended up all the way in London. And nobody realised the two halves belonged together, until a researcher happened to notice the same distinctive pattern in both collections. Once researchers formally reunited them, they revealed a brand new species called Sphenodraco scandentis, a relative of the tuatara from New Zealand, with unusually long limbs and fingers built for climbing trees, making it the oldest known tree-dwelling member of its entire reptile group. Sometimes the biggest scientific breakthrough is not a new dig at all. It is just finally admitting two puzzle pieces have been sitting in different countries the whole time. Oh, and don't forget to answer today's poll in the comments, and let us know your reasoning as well. We do actually read these, and we absolutely will judge you a little bit based on your answer, but only lovingly, of course. Now for Scotty's comeback story. Scotty is one of the largest Tyrannosaurus rex specimens ever found, and researchers recently used an intensely powerful synchrotron, not a regular CT scanner, because, regular medical scanners just cannot punch through bone this dense and fossilized, to peer inside one of Scotty's ribs without damaging the 66-million-year-old fossil. What they found were mineralized, iron-rich traces of actual blood vessels, preserved evidence that this rib had been actively healing from a fracture, quite possibly earned in a fight with another dinosaur, right up until Scotty died just a few months later. Which means we now have a literal snapshot of a Tyrannosaurus rex mid-recovery. Still walking around, presumably still terrifying, just nursing a bad rib, like the rest of us, after skipping leg day. But we are not done getting stranger yet, because next up, the universe's blurriest ice cube. Most of the ice floating around the cosmos is something called low-density amorphous ice, long assumed to be totally random and structureless, sort of the frozen equivalent of static noise. New computer simulations suggest that is not quite true. This ice actually contains tiny embedded crystals only a few nanometers wide, barely wider than a strand of DNA, scattered throughout an otherwise disordered structure. Understanding this matters well beyond curiosity too, since ice like this plays a role in how planets and galaxies form, and scientists think it could even be engineered someday to shield spacecraft from radiation. It also matters for a theory called panspermia, the idea that the ingredients for life hitched a ride to Earth inside a comet made of this ice, because a more crystalline structure means less open space for those ingredients to hide in, making the whole comet delivery theory a little less convenient than we hoped. And finally, the world's coldest makeout session. In a Norwegian fjord, snorkelers caught two wild orcas doing something scientists had only ever documented in captivity since the behavior was first noted back in 1978, gently nibbling each other's tongues face to face for almost 2 minutes across 3 separate rounds. Researchers believe this tongue-nibbling behavior helps reinforce social bonds, especially between orcas not yet caught up in mating or dominance drama. And the fact that it shows up in both wild and captive orcas from completely different backgrounds and gene pools suggests this is not some isolated habit or a byproduct of captivity. It is simply something orcas do, out here in the actual ocean, whether we are lucky enough to catch it on camera or not. So there you have it, Curious George. 7 stories, 0 connective tissue, spanning ice ages, flying reptiles, dinosaurs, deep space, and 1 extremely affectionate pair of orcas. And yet, somehow, every single one makes the world feel a little stranger and a little more wonderful than it did 7 days ago. Real science does not need to be flashy or connected by some grand unifying theme to be worth your attention. Sometimes it is just a museum volunteer noticing the right fossil, or a snorkeler happening to have their camera rolling at exactly the right moment. Like this video, follow the channel and go tell somebody about the T-Rex with the healing rib. They will not believe you, and honestly, that is the best kind of true fact. See you there, Curious George.